Hey guys, tonight we begin with a journey into the ancient world, into the streets, homes, and routines of a civilization that shaped law, language, architecture, and government across continents. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now settle in as we step quietly into the city of Rome nearly 2,000 years ago, when the empire stood at the height of its power and daily life moved to rhythms both ordinary and immense. The first light of dawn spreads slowly over the 7 hills. The sky above the city shifts from deep blue to pale gold, revealing tiled rooftops packed tightly together. Smoke begins to rise from small openings as household fires are rekindled. Rome is already awake. Bakers have worked through the night in stone ovens, grinding imported Egyptian grain into flour and shaping loaves that will be sold in neighborhood shops. The scent of warm bread drifts into narrow streets paved with worn basalt stones. The city is vast, crowded, and layered. By the 2nd century CE, Rome holds perhaps 1 million residents. Some live in grand townhouses known as domus, owned by senators and wealthy merchants. Many more live in tall apartment buildings called insulae, constructed of brick and concrete, rising several stories high. These structures lean over winding alleys where shopkeepers open wooden shutters to display goods directly onto the street. Water flows steadily into the city through aqueducts that stretch for miles across the countryside. These elevated channels, supported by stone arches, carry fresh water from distant springs. The water feeds public fountains, bathhouses, and private homes of the wealthy. At street corners, fountains spill continuously into basins where residents gather to fill clay jars. The sound of splashing water blends with the rumble of carts and the echo of footsteps. As the sun climbs higher, the Forum Romanum begins to fill. This central plaza serves as the political, commercial, and social heart of Rome. Marble temples stand beside government buildings, their columns casting long shadows. Statues of emperors and generals line the open spaces, carved in white stone, commemorating victories in distant lands. Senators in white togas edged with purple stripes walk across the square, accompanied by attendants. Their sandals strike the pavement in steady rhythm. Merchants set up stalls along the edges of the forum. They display olives, figs, salted fish, and cloth dyed in shades of red and saffron. Coins change hands frequently. Roman currency consists of bronze, silver, and gold pieces stamped with the emperor's profile. Trade networks extend across the Mediterranean, bringing spices from the east, glassware from Syria, and metals from Spain. Rome functions as the center of a vast economic system sustained by roads and sea routes. Beyond the Forum, construction continues across the city. Roman engineering defines the urban landscape. Concrete, developed and refined by Roman builders, allows for large vaulted ceilings and domes. The Colosseum, completed in the 1st century CE, rises as a massive amphitheater of stone and concrete. Its exterior arches are stacked in orderly rows, creating a structure capable of seating tens of thousands. Inside, wooden platforms cover a complex system of corridors and chambers where animals and performers await scheduled spectacles. Daily life for most Romans is structured by status and occupation. In a wealthy household, the pater familias holds legal authority over the family. His responsibilities include managing property, arranging marriages, and conducting religious rituals at the domestic shrine. The domus is arranged around an open central courtyard known as the atrium. Rainwater collects in a shallow basin at its center. Rooms extend outward, decorated with wall paintings depicting landscapes, myths, and geometric designs. Enslaved individuals perform much of the labor within elite homes. Some prepare meals, others tutor children, manage accounts, or accompany their owners in public. Enslavement in Rome is not based on race, but on conquest and trade. Prisoners captured in military campaigns are sold in markets. Skilled enslaved workers may earn money and eventually purchase their freedom, becoming freedmen who continue to work in trades and commerce. In the insulae, conditions differ sharply. Families occupy small rented rooms, often without direct access to running water. Cooking is done over portable braziers, and fires sometimes spread quickly through wooden beams. Landlords seek profit by adding extra floors, increasing the risk of collapse. Despite these dangers, insulae house the majority of Rome's population. Street-level spaces are rented to shopkeepers who sell wine, oil, and simple meals. Education in Rome varies according to wealth. Boys from affluent families attend schools where they learn reading, writing, rhetoric, and basic mathematics. Greek literature is widely studied, and educated Romans often speak both Latin and Greek. Girls in wealthy families may receive private instruction at home, focusing on literacy and household management. For children of laborers and artisans, formal education is limited, and practical skills are learned through apprenticeship. Religious life weaves quietly through daily routines. Romans honor a wide range of gods and spirits. Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva preside over the Capitoline Hill. Smaller household gods known as Lares and Penates guard domestic spaces. Offerings of wine, grain, and incense are made regularly. Public festivals punctuate the calendar, filling streets with processions, sacrifices, and communal meals. Religion is integrated into civic identity, linking divine favor to the prosperity of the state. The empire itself stretches from Britain in the northwest to Egypt in the southeast. Roads radiate outward from Rome in carefully measured lines. Constructed with layers of stone and gravel, these roads allow armies and merchants to travel efficiently. Milestones mark distances. Along these routes, way stations provide lodging for officials carrying messages under the cursus publicus, the imperial postal system. At midday, many Romans pause their work. Shops may close briefly as residents eat simple meals of bread, cheese, olives, and fruit. Wealthier households serve larger spreads, including fish, vegetables, and occasionally meat. Dining customs reflect hierarchy. Guests recline on couches around low tables during formal dinners, while enslaved attendants serve multiple courses. Conversation focuses on politics, literature, and events across the empire. Public baths, known as thermae, play a central role in social life. These vast complexes include hot rooms, warm rooms, cold pools, exercise yards, and libraries. Entry fees are modest, allowing citizens from different classes to attend. Bathing follows a sequence: exercise in the palaestra, immersion in heated rooms, scraping of oil and dirt from the skin with a metal strigil, and a final plunge into cool water. Business discussions and social networking occur within these walls of marble and mosaic. Entertainment in Rome includes chariot races at the Circus Maximus. The elongated stadium can hold hundreds of thousands of spectators. Teams identified by colors compete at high speed around a central barrier. Drivers guide teams of 4 horses, leaning sharply into turns. Betting is common, and crowds respond collectively to each lap. Victorious charioteers gain fame and wealth. Gladiatorial games take place in amphitheaters across the empire. Fighters trained in specialized schools engage in organized combat. Some are volunteers seeking status, while many are enslaved or condemned prisoners. The events follow established rules and categories of weaponry. Crowds observe from tiered seating arranged by social rank. These spectacles reinforce imperial authority and provide public distraction. As afternoon light fades, shadows lengthen across temples and markets. Workers return to their homes. Oil lamps are lit, casting steady illumination through doorways and windows. Evening meals are eaten. In quieter neighborhoods, conversations drift from open courtyards. In busier districts, taverns fill with patrons drinking diluted wine. Music from flutes and lyres can be heard intermittently. Security in the city is maintained by cohorts of urban guards and night watchmen. They patrol streets, respond to disturbances, and attempt to control fires. Despite these measures, crime exists in crowded quarters. Pickpockets move through markets. Graffiti is scratched onto walls, advertising events or expressing political opinions. Beyond Rome's walls, farmland supplies the city with produce. Large estates, known as latifundia, operate with enslaved labor, producing olives, wine, and grain. Smaller farmers cultivate vegetables and raise livestock. Agricultural cycles dictate rural life, with planting and harvest seasons requiring intense labor. Goods are transported by cart and riverboat toward urban centers. The emperor resides in an expansive palace complex on the Palatine Hill. From this elevated position, he oversees ceremonies and receives delegations. Imperial administration relies on a network of officials who collect taxes, enforce laws, and manage provinces. Stability depends on military loyalty. Legions stationed along frontiers defend borders against incursions and suppress revolts. As night settles fully over the city, the sky darkens above the rooftops. The noise diminishes gradually. Lamps flicker in Insuli and Domus alike. In workshops, tools are set aside. In the Forum, marble statues stand silent under starlight. Rome rests, yet its systems continue to function through distant provinces, along guarded roads and across sea lanes carrying grain ships toward the capital. This is the rhythm of one day within the ancient city. Layers of governance, labor, belief, and engineering combine to sustain a population unprecedented in scale. The structures built in stone and concrete endure beyond individual lifetimes. The routines repeated each morning reinforce a society ordered by law and hierarchy. As dawn prepares to return once more, the cycle of Roman life continues without interruption, grounded in discipline, expansion, and adaptation across centuries. Morning returns to the city with the same gradual light over tiled roofs and narrow streets, and daily life resumes with a precision shaped by custom and law. Within Rome's walls and across its provinces, society operates according to clearly defined ranks. Citizenship forms the foundation of legal identity. At the top stand senators and equestrians, families whose wealth and ancestry grant them political influence. Below them are ordinary citizens who vote in assemblies and serve in legions. Beneath citizens are freedmen, formerly enslaved individuals who have gained limited rights. At the bottom are the enslaved, who remain legally property under Roman law. In an elite domus on the Palatine Hill, the household begins its routine. The atrium fills with filtered sunlight from the opening in the roof. The paterfamilias, dressed in a simple tunic before donning his toga for public appearances, reviews wax tablets containing accounts of estates and investments. Roman wealth often extends far beyond the city itself. Senators may own agricultural land in Sicily, vineyards in Gaul, and rental properties within Rome. Income arrives through tenants, agricultural production, and state contracts. Marriage in Roman society is both personal and strategic. Among the upper classes, unions are arranged to strengthen alliances between families. A bride typically enters her husband's household in her early teens. Dowries are negotiated carefully, consisting of money, land, or valuable goods. While affection may develop, the legal framework emphasizes inheritance and legitimacy. Divorce remains legally accessible and relatively common among elites, particularly when political alliances shift. Children are central to family continuity. Upon birth, a newborn is formally recognized by the father in a ritual that confirms acceptance into the household. Infant mortality rates remain high by modern standards, and families often have several children with the understanding that not all will survive to adulthood. Boys are groomed for public life and legal authority. Girls are prepared for marriage and domestic management. Toys discovered in archaeological sites, wooden dolls, Miniature chariots, carved animals, suggest structured play within defined social roles. In the kitchen of the domus, enslaved cooks prepare the main meal of the day, typically served in the afternoon. Ingredients vary according to wealth. The Roman diet relies heavily on grain, consumed as bread or porridge. Olive oil is used in cooking and as a condiment. Fish sauce, known as garum, produced by fermenting fish in salt, flavors many dishes. Wealthier households enjoy imported delicacies, such as dates from North Africa or pepper from India, transported through extensive trade networks. The layout of the domus reflects privacy and display. Behind the atrium lies the tablinum, where the paterfamilias receives clients each morning. This ritual, known as the salutatio, reinforces social hierarchy. Clients, often lower-status citizens or freedmen, visit to pay respects and request assistance. In return, they offer political support or services. This patron-client system binds Roman society together through obligation and reciprocity. Beyond the formal reception rooms are private quarters and a garden courtyard called the peristyle. Here, columns frame a small green space with fountains and statues. Walls are painted with scenes depicting mythology, architecture, and landscapes that create the illusion of expanded space. Floors are decorated with mosaics assembled from tiny colored stones. These artistic elements demonstrate both wealth and cultural education. In contrast, daily life within an insula follows a different pattern. A family of artisans may occupy a single rented room on an upper floor. Access is gained by a narrow staircase. Windows are small, limiting natural light. Water must be carried from public fountains, and waste is disposed of in communal facilities or sometimes directly into the street. Rent consumes a significant portion of income. The ground floor of the building houses a shop where the father works as a cobbler, repairing sandals and crafting new footwear from leather. Work begins early. Artisans operate within small workshops open to the street. Blacksmiths hammer iron tools on anvils. Potters shape clay on spinning wheels before firing vessels in kilns. Textile workers spin wool and weave cloth on upright looms. Apprenticeships provide training, usually beginning in childhood. Skills are passed from one generation to the next, ensuring continuity in trades essential to urban life. Women in non-elite households contribute directly to economic survival. They manage household tasks, assist in workshops, and sometimes run market stalls. Legal rights for women remain limited compared to men, but Roman law allows property ownership and business management in certain circumstances, particularly for widows or freed women. Inscriptions across the empire record female merchants, midwives, and craft workers. Public infrastructure supports both rich and poor. Markets, known as macella, provide regulated spaces for the sale of meat and produce. Grain distribution programs funded by the state supply subsidized or free grain to eligible citizens. This system, known as the annona, stabilizes food supply and reduces unrest. Large shipments of grain arrive by ship from Egypt, transported up the Tiber River and stored in warehouses near the port district. Health and medicine in ancient Rome combined practical observation with inherited Greek theories. Physicians, many of them Greek, diagnose illnesses based on the balance of bodily humors. Treatments include herbal remedies, dietary adjustments, and surgical procedures performed with bronze instruments. Public sanitation measures, including sewers such as the Cloaca Maxima, remove wastewater from the city. Latrines connected to running water allow for communal use. Despite these systems, disease spreads easily in crowded districts. Education continues beyond childhood for those pursuing public careers. Rhetorical training prepares young men for legal advocacy and political debate. Students practice speeches drawn from historical or hypothetical cases. Mastery of persuasion is considered essential for advancement in public office. Libraries attached to bath complexes provide access to scrolls copied by hand. Literature includes epic poetry, historical accounts, philosophical treatises, and technical manuals on engineering and agriculture. Military service remains a defining institution. Legions consist of professional soldiers who serve for fixed terms, often 20 years or more. Recruits undergo disciplined training in formation, weapon use, and construction. Roman camps are built according to standardized plans, with defensive walls and organized streets. Veterans receive land grants upon discharge, settling in colonies that extend Roman culture into frontier regions. Religious observance maintains continuity with tradition. Temples dedicated to specific gods operate under the supervision of priests. Augurs interpret the will of the gods by observing bird flight patterns. Haruspices examine the entrails of sacrificed animals for omens. State rituals are performed with precision to ensure divine favor. Foreign cults also appear within Rome, including the worship of Isis and Mithras, reflecting the empire's diversity. Legal systems structure everyday interactions. Roman law codifies property rights, contracts, and family relations. Magistrates preside over courts held in public spaces. Litigants present arguments, sometimes represented by skilled orators. Written documents on papyrus or wax tablets record agreements. The concept of citizenship grants specific protections, including the right to appeal certain punishments. As afternoon transitions to evening, the baths once again fill with residents from different backgrounds. Conversations range from business arrangements to military campaigns reported from distant provinces. News travels along trade routes and through official announcements posted in public spaces. Political developments, including imperial decrees, are carved into stone inscriptions for permanence. Entertainment extends beyond large spectacles. Theaters host performances of comedies and tragedies adapted from Greek models. Actors wear masks and perform on elevated stages backed by elaborately decorated facades. Audiences respond according to established conventions. Poets recite verses in smaller gatherings, seeking patronage and recognition. In rural provinces, life differs in pace but remains tied to Roman administration. Villas dot the countryside, serving as both working farms and seasonal residences for urban elites. Roads connect villages to regional capitals. Latin spreads gradually as the language of administration and commerce, blending with local dialects. Roman citizenship is extended incrementally to provincial populations, integrating diverse cultures into imperial identity. As darkness settles once more, oil lamps illuminate interior spaces. Families gather for evening meals. In elite houses, courses are served sequentially. Appetizers of eggs and salads, main dishes of fish or meat, and desserts of fruit and honey cakes. In modest homes, meals remain simple and practical. After eating, some households engage in quiet recreation, reading aloud or playing board games, such as La Trunculi. Outside, the city quiets under the supervision of night patrols. Fires are monitored carefully. The steady presence of aqueducts, roads, markets, temples, and administrative offices demonstrates the scale of organization required to sustain Rome's population. Beneath the visible structures lies a network of labor, law, and tradition that shapes individual lives from birth to death. The Roman world functions not only through monumental architecture and military strength, but through countless daily actions repeated consistently. Contracts are signed, grain is milled, lessons are taught, and rituals are performed. Families negotiate marriages, merchants balance accounts, and soldiers stand watch along distant frontiers. Through these routines, Rome maintains its influence across continents. The city prepares again for rest. Torches fade in upper windows of insulae. Courtyards grow still. Marble columns cool under the night air. In the emperor's palace, scribes finalize documents destined for provincial governors. Along the Tiber, ships remain anchored, their cargo secured for morning unloading. Across the empire, similar rhythms unfold in cities modeled after Rome, connected by law and infrastructure. This continuing pattern of domestic life, economic exchange, and civic duty forms the foundation of ancient Roman society. Beneath the grandeur of temples and amphitheaters lies a structured world defined by hierarchy, discipline, and adaptation. As another night passes, Preparations for the following day begin quietly, sustaining a civilization whose influence will extend far beyond its own era. As the sun rises again over the tiled roofs of Rome, attention turns to the labor that sustains the empire beyond the visible routines of households and public spaces. The city does not function on ceremony alone. It depends on coordinated systems of production, taxation, transportation, and record-keeping that stretch across 3 continents. From the stone quarries of Egypt to the tin mines of Britain, countless individuals contribute to a network that feeds and finances the capital. In the early morning hours along the Tiber River, dock workers assemble beside anchored cargo ships. These vessels have traveled from North Africa and Egypt, carrying grain packed in large sacks stacked tightly in the hull. The grain supply is essential. Rome cannot produce enough food within Italy to feed its population. Instead, it relies on provinces with fertile river valleys. Egypt, after its annexation under Augustus, becomes one of the empire's primary grain sources. The Nile's annual flooding ensures predictable harvests, and fleets of ships transport the surplus northward. Cranes powered by tread wheels lift heavy cargo from ships onto the docks. Teams of laborers move in coordinated rhythm. Warehouse supervisors record deliveries on wax tablets, marking quantities and origins. Grain is transferred into vast storage buildings known as horea. From there, it will be distributed through the state system or sold privately. Accuracy in measurement is critical, and standardized containers ensure fairness in transactions. Nearby, merchants negotiate contracts for olive oil imported from Hispania and North Africa. Large ceramic jars called amphorae, stamped with identifying marks, are unloaded and inspected. These stamps often include the name of the producer, the workshop, and the region of origin. Archaeologists centuries later will reconstruct trade patterns through these markings. In Rome's present moment, however, these amphorae are practical tools of commerce, stacked high along the riverbanks before being transported to markets. Roman roads form the arteries of inland trade. Constructed in layers, foundation stones, gravel, and fitted paving blocks, these roads allow heavy wagons to travel in nearly all seasons. Milestones placed at regular intervals record distances from the city of Rome. Inns and rest stations line major routes. Merchants carrying textiles from Gaul or spices from eastern provinces travel under the protection of Roman law, which guarantees relative stability across vast territories. Craft production flourishes both within Rome and in provincial centers. In workshops along busy streets, metal workers shape tools, armor, and household utensils. Bronze and iron are forged in furnaces fueled by charcoal. Skilled artisans create surgical instruments, hinges, locks, and decorative objects. Pottery workshops operate on a larger scale in regions such as Gaul, where fine red gloss tableware known as terra sigillata is produced in standardized forms and distributed widely. These items appear in homes from Britain to Syria, reflecting a shared material culture. Textile production requires coordinated labor. Wool from sheep raised in Italy and Spain is cleaned, spun into thread, and woven into cloth. Dyeing processes use natural substances such as mather for red and woad for blue. Purple dye extracted from sea snails in the eastern Mediterranean remains rare and expensive. Garments edged in purple signify high rank. Most Romans wear simple tunics belted at the waist, while citizens appearing in formal contexts drape themselves in togas. The financial system that supports trade depends on taxation. Provincial governors oversee tax collection in their regions, supervised by imperial officials. Taxes may be paid in coin or in kind, particularly in agricultural provinces. Revenues fund the army, public works, and the imperial court. Roman coinage circulates widely. Coins bear the image of the reigning emperor, reinforcing authority through everyday exchange. In administrative offices near the Forum, scribes copy legal documents and imperial decrees. Papyrus sheets imported from Egypt are glued into scrolls. Ink made from soot and plant gum is applied with reed pens. Records are stored carefully, forming archives that preserve contracts, census data, and military assignments. The census, conducted periodically, assesses property and population. It determines tax obligations and military service requirements. Beyond commerce and administration, agriculture remains the foundation of the empire's wealth. In the Italian countryside, large estates operate under overseers who manage enslaved laborers and tenant farmers. Crops are rotated according to season. Wheat is harvested with iron sickles and threshed to separate grain from chaff. Olive groves require careful pruning and pressing. Wine production involves crushing grapes in stone basins and fermenting juice in clay vessels. Surpluses are transported by road or river to urban markets. Mining operations supply metals essential for tools, coins, and weapons. In the Iberian Peninsula, silver mines generate substantial revenue. Workers extract ore from underground shafts, sometimes in difficult conditions. Water-powered machinery assists in drainage and ore processing. In other regions, marble quarries provide stone for monumental construction. Blocks are cut with precision and transported long distances for use in temples, bathhouses, and triumphal arches. The Roman army plays a central role in maintaining these economic networks. Legions stationed along frontiers protect trade routes from disruption. Forts are positioned strategically near rivers and mountain passes. Soldiers build bridges, roads, and defensive walls as part of their duties. Military presence stabilizes newly conquered territories, encouraging merchants to operate with confidence. Urban planning reflects careful organization. Roman cities across the empire often follow a grid pattern, centered on a forum. Public buildings include basilicas for legal proceedings, temples for worship, and bath complexes for recreation. Aqueducts supply water not only to Rome, but to provincial capitals as well. This standardized urban model promotes administrative efficiency and cultural cohesion. Within Rome itself, guild-like associations known as collegia organize certain trades. Bakers, shipbuilders, and metalworkers may belong to such groups. These associations provide mutual support, regulate standards, and sometimes sponsor religious activities. Membership reinforces professional identity and offers a measure of social security in times of hardship. Transportation by sea remains faster and more efficient than overland travel. Merchant ships equipped with large square sails cross the Mediterranean during favorable seasons. Navigation relies on coastal landmarks and knowledge of prevailing winds. Harbors such as Ostia serve as critical hubs. Lighthouses guide vessels safely into port. Harbor officials inspect cargo and collect customs duties. Communication across the empire depends on the cursus publicus, the state-run courier system. Mounted couriers carry official messages between administrative centers. Relay stations provide fresh horses. This system allows imperial directives to reach distant provinces with relative speed. Civilian correspondence travels more slowly, but still benefits from established routes. As afternoon advances, markets within Rome display goods from across the known world. Spices from Arabia, glassware from Alexandria, and carpets from Anatolia are arranged alongside locally produced items. Buyers examine quality carefully. Weights and measures are regulated to prevent fraud. Inspectors occasionally enforce standards, ensuring trust in transactions. Labor conditions vary widely. Free workers negotiate wages for construction projects or seasonal harvests. Enslaved laborers perform tasks ranging from domestic service to heavy industry. Some enslaved individuals are highly educated, serving as accountants or teachers. Others endure physically demanding work in mines or fields. Legal frameworks permit manumission, and freedmen often continue working in skilled professions, contributing to economic growth. Infrastructure projects demonstrate imperial ambition. Under various emperors, new roads are paved, aqueducts extended, and public buildings renovated.
These works provide employment while reinforcing loyalty to the regime. Inscriptions carved into stone commemorate the emperor responsible for construction, linking civic improvement with imperial authority.
Evening approaches as workshops close their shutters. Dock workers finish unloading the final shipments of the day. Merchants tally earnings by lamplight. In administrative offices, scribes seal scrolls with wax stamps. Across the countryside, farmers secure tools and animals before darkness falls. The machinery of empire slows but does not stop. In distant provinces, similar patterns unfold. In Gaul, vineyards produce wine destined for export. In North Africa, fields of grain ripple under the wind before harvest. In Syria, caravans carry goods along desert routes connecting Rome to eastern markets. Each region contributes according to its resources, integrated through Roman governance. This interconnected system sustains not only economic stability, but also cultural exchange. Architectural styles, religious practices, and languages blend gradually across territories. Roman law adapts to local circumstances while maintaining core principles. Roads and shipping lanes become conduits for ideas as well as goods. Night descends once more over the capital. The Tiber reflects scattered lamplight from warehouses and riverside dwellings. In the Forum, inscriptions etched in marble stand as permanent records of decrees and dedications. Beyond the city, milestones mark distances across quiet roads. In frontier forts, soldiers maintain watch beside controlled fires. The empire's strength rests not solely on military conquest, but on these continuous cycles of work and coordination. Grain must be harvested, metals extracted, contracts recorded, and ships guided safely to harbor. Each task supports the broader structure. Through disciplined administration and organized labor, Rome maintains cohesion across immense distances. As another day concludes, the infrastructure of trade and governance remains firmly in place. Preparations for tomorrow's exchanges begin without announcement. In warehouses, grain waits for distribution. In workshops, tools rest beside half-finished products. In provincial offices, reports are prepared for dispatch to Rome. The system persists through repetition and order, shaping daily life in ways both visible and unseen. As another morning settles over Rome, attention shifts toward the structures of authority that guide the empire's direction. The visible calm of markets and homes rests upon a political framework that has evolved over centuries. By the height of imperial rule, the Roman state balances inherited republican traditions with centralized power vested in the emperor. This system governs territories stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the deserts of the Near East. At the center of authority stands the emperor, holding titles that combine military command, religious leadership, and civil oversight. Though republican offices such as consul and senators still exist, ultimate decision-making authority flows through the imperial household. The emperor commands the legions, appoints governors, oversees finances, and issues edicts. His image appears on coinage, statues, and official inscriptions, reinforcing imperial presence throughout the empire. The Senate continues to convene in a formal assembly hall near the Forum. Senators drawn from established families debate legislation, manage certain provinces, and serve as advisors. Their influence varies depending on the strength and personality of the reigning emperor. Some emperors consult regularly with the Senate, maintaining a cooperative appearance. Others govern more directly, relying on personal advisors and equestrian officials. Beneath these upper ranks, magistrates administer daily civic responsibilities. Praetors oversee courts and legal disputes. Quaestors supervise financial matters. Aediles maintain public buildings, markets, and festivals. Though the imperial system reduces the political independence once enjoyed during the Republic, these offices remain part of the administrative fabric. Service in such roles continues to mark social advancement. Law enforcement within the city is handled by organized cohorts. The urban cohorts act as a police force, maintaining order in crowded districts. The vigiles serve as night watchmen and firefighters, patrolling streets to prevent blazes in densely built neighborhoods. The Praetorian Guard, stationed near the imperial palace, protects the emperor and plays a decisive role in moments of political transition. Their loyalty can determine succession during uncertain times. Public communication is conducted through inscriptions and proclamations. Decrees are carved into stone tablets and displayed prominently. News of imperial victories, tax changes, or new construction projects spreads through these official postings. In addition, professional town criers announce important developments aloud in public spaces. Literacy rates vary, but public reading ensures information reaches a broad audience. Provincial administration requires coordination across vast distances. The empire is divided into provinces governed by appointed officials. Some provinces are peaceful and overseen by senatorial governors. Others, particularly those along unstable frontiers, are managed by imperial legates commanding military forces. Governors are responsible for tax collection, legal cases, and maintaining infrastructure. They correspond regularly with Rome, submitting detailed reports. Census operations provide essential data. Officials record property ownership, family members, and social status. These records determine taxation and military obligations. Accurate documentation strengthens central authority. In urban centers, clerks compile lists and store records in archives. Rural regions require traveling officials to conduct surveys. Public works serve as visible symbols of effective governance. Emperors sponsor the construction of roads, bridges, aqueducts, and monuments. Triumphal arches commemorate military campaigns, depicting scenes of conquest in carved relief. Columns, spiraling upward, display detailed narratives of battles and engineering feats. These monuments serve both commemorative and educational purposes, reinforcing imperial achievements. The judicial system operates in open forums where magistrates preside. Litigants present evidence and witnesses. Roman law evolves through precedent and written statutes. Contracts are binding when properly witnessed and sealed. Disputes over property, inheritance, or debt are resolved according to established procedures. Citizens possess specific legal protections, including the right to appeal certain decisions to higher authorities. Political succession remains one of the most delicate aspects of imperial governance. While some emperors designate heirs through adoption or biological lineage, transitions are not always smooth. The support of the army proves decisive. A general commanding loyal legions may be proclaimed emperor by troops stationed on a frontier. In such moments, communication networks carry news quickly to Rome, where the Senate must recognize or resist the claim. Public ceremonies reinforce stability. Religious festivals include prayers offered on behalf of the emperor's health and prosperity. Victories abroad are celebrated with triumphal processions. During these events, captured spoils and prisoners are paraded through the streets. The general or emperor rides in a chariot along the Via Sacra toward the capital. Spectators gather to witness the display, affirming Rome's dominance. Despite the grandeur, the system must respond to challenges. Urban unrest occasionally arises due to food shortages or political tension. The grain supply remains critical in preventing disorder. When shipments are delayed, crowds gather near warehouses demanding distribution.
Officials respond by accelerating deliveries or providing additional rations. Maintaining public order requires constant oversight. In the provinces, local elites often collaborate with Roman administrators. They adopt Roman dress, language, and architectural styles. In return, they receive recognition and limited autonomy. This partnership allows Rome to govern diverse populations efficiently. Temples dedicated to the imperial cult appear in provincial cities, where residents perform rituals honoring the emperor alongside traditional deities. Military discipline supports political authority. Legions are stationed along frontiers such as the Rhine, Danube, and Euphrates rivers. Fortifications include walls, watchtowers, and fortified camps laid out in precise geometric patterns. Soldiers conduct regular drills, maintain equipment, and build infrastructure. Their presence deters invasion and signals Rome's readiness to defend its borders. Infrastructure projects like Hadrian's Wall in Britain demonstrate strategic planning. Stretching across northern England, the wall marks a controlled boundary. Forts and mile castles punctuate its length, regulating movement and trade. Such constructions require coordination between engineers, laborers, and military units. Intelligence gathering forms another aspect of governance. Couriers relay information about provincial conditions. Governors report unrest or external threats. Imperial advisors analyze these reports and recommend responses. Though communication takes time compared to modern standards, the established road and courier networks allow relatively swift coordination. Economic policy intersects closely with political stability. Coinage must retain consistent metal content to maintain trust. Periodic adjustments in silver purity reflect financial pressures. Emperors may sponsor public games or distribute monetary gifts to maintain loyalty among citizens and soldiers. These acts reinforce loyalty but require careful management of resources.
Public architecture reinforces civic pride. Basilicas serve as centers for legal and commercial activity. Their large interior spaces accommodate gatherings and negotiations. Libraries preserve literary works, contributing to cultural continuity. Amphitheaters and theaters provide regulated entertainment, channeling public attention into organized spectacles. As afternoon light spreads across the forum, officials conduct hearings beneath colonnades. Petitioners wait patiently for their cases to be heard. Nearby, tax records are reviewed and sealed. In the Senate House, debates conclude with formal votes. Decisions are recorded and transmitted to relevant offices. Evening approaches, and torches illuminate the streets near the imperial palace. Members of the Praetorian Guard stand at attention. Within administrative chambers, final documents are prepared for dispatch. Governors in distant provinces anticipate these communications, adjusting local policies according to imperial directives. Beyond Rome, similar administrative rhythms unfold. In Alexandria, officials oversee grain shipments bound for Italy. In Antioch, military commanders monitor eastern borders. In Carthage, merchants coordinate trade with inland territories. The empire's political system relies on this synchronized effort. Night falls once more over the capital. Marble monuments stand against the darkened sky. The Senate House closes its doors. The forum grows quiet except for the footsteps of patrols. Within the palace, advisors conclude their discussions, and scribes store scrolls in wooden cabinets. The machinery of governance rests temporarily, but remains prepared for the next cycle of decisions. Authority flows from the emperor outward through layered offices and institutions. Laws are enforced, taxes collected, roads maintained, and borders guarded. Through this structured framework, Rome sustains order across immense distances. As the city settles into silence, the political system that shapes daily life continues to function quietly beneath the surface. Preparations for tomorrow's decrees and deliberations are already underway. In this steady continuity of administration and public order,
The empire maintains its cohesion, reinforcing the structures that define ancient Roman life.
With the first pale light of morning spreading once again across the hills of Rome, attention turns to the rhythms that mark time itself. Beyond politics and commerce, Roman life is structured by observance, by rituals repeated daily, monthly, and yearly. Religion in ancient Rome is not separate from civic life. It is embedded within governance, family tradition, and agricultural cycles. From the smallest household shrine to the grandest temple on the Capitoline Hill, acts of devotion accompany the routines of work and authority. In a modest home within a crowded insula, a small niche in the wall holds figurines of the Lares, protective spirits of the household. At dawn, the head of the family places a pinch of grain or pours a few drops of wine before these figures. The act is brief and deliberate. It acknowledges the unseen forces believed to guard the home. In elite houses, the lararium may be more elaborate, decorated with painted columns and small statues arranged carefully within a recessed shrine. Across the city, priests prepare for public rituals. Roman religion operates through defined offices. Pontiffs oversee sacred law. Augurs interpret signs observed in nature, especially the flight patterns of birds. Vestal virgins maintain the eternal flame in the Temple of Vesta, symbolizing the continuity of Rome itself. These priestesses, chosen as children, serve for decades under strict vows, performing duties that hold both spiritual and political importance. On designated festival days, the city's normal routine shifts. The Roman calendar is filled with observances tied to agriculture, military events, and mythological traditions. During the festival of Saturnalia in winter, social norms are temporarily relaxed. Roles between enslaved individuals and masters are symbolically reversed in private settings, and small gifts are exchanged. Markets close and public spaces fill with gatherings. These moments provide structured release within an otherwise disciplined society. In spring, festivals connected to planting season emphasize renewal. Offerings are made to Ceres, goddess of agriculture, requesting favorable harvests. Farmers outside the city participate in parallel rites in their fields. The connection between divine favor and agricultural success remains central. Poor harvests are interpreted not merely as natural events, but as potential signs of ritual neglect. Temples dominate the skyline in various districts. Constructed of stone with tall columns and triangular pediments, these structures house cult statues of gods and goddesses. Sacrifices are conducted in open-air altars before the temple steps. Animals such as cattle, sheep, or pigs are selected carefully, inspected for physical perfection. Priests recite formal prayers, and the animal is offered in a controlled ritual. Portions of the meat are burned for the gods, while the remainder is distributed among participants. Religion also intersects with imperial identity. Emperors, beginning with Augustus, encouraged the worship of Roma and Augustus in provincial cities. Temples dedicated to the imperial cult serve as centers of loyalty. Participation does not necessarily replace local traditions, but integrates them into a broader framework of allegiance. Statues of the emperor stand beside those of established deities. Foreign cults find followers within Rome's diverse population. The worship of Isis, originating in Egypt, attracts devotees drawn to its elaborate ceremonies. The cult of Mithras, often associated with soldiers, involves initiation rituals conducted in underground chambers. These imported practices coexist alongside traditional Roman rites, reflecting the empire's expansive reach. Philosophy also shapes Roman thought. Schools influenced by Greek traditions teach Stoicism, Epicureanism, and other systems of reasoning. Stoic philosophy, emphasizing duty and rational acceptance of fate, appeals particularly to statesmen and military leaders. Philosophers gather students in porticos and private homes, discussing ethics,
governance, and the nature of the universe. Written works circulate among educated readers, copied by hand and preserved in private libraries. Time itself is carefully measured. Sundials stand in public spaces, casting shadows that mark daylight hours. Water clocks operate indoors, measuring intervals by regulated flow. The Roman calendar, reformed under Julius Caesar, aligns months more accurately with the solar year. Official business follows designated days considered favorable or unfavorable for legal proceedings. Funerary customs reveal beliefs about memory and continuity. When a family member dies, the body is prepared and displayed in the home for a period of mourning. Processions move through the streets toward burial grounds located outside the city walls. Tombs line major roads leading from Rome, their inscriptions recording names, achievements, and family connections. Some monuments are simple stone markers, others are elaborate structures decorated with relief carvings. Ancestral masks, known as imagines, are preserved by elite families. During funerals, these wax likenesses are worn by participants representing deceased ancestors. The display reinforces lineage and continuity. Public memory plays an important role in maintaining status. Daily superstition coexists with formal ritual. Amulets shaped like small charms are worn for protection against misfortune. Graffiti scratched onto walls request good luck in business or romance. Astrologers consult star charts, offering predictions based on planetary alignment. Though not officially endorsed in all periods, astrology remains widely practiced. Education in religious tradition begins early. Children learn the names and domains of gods through household instruction. Stories from mythology are recited in schools and at home. These narratives explain natural phenomena and human behavior within a structured cosmology. Myths are depicted in frescoes and mosaics, reinforcing familiarity with divine figures. As midday approaches, temple courtyards fill with individuals offering private prayers. Some seek success in business ventures. Others request recovery from illness. Votive offerings in the shape of body parts, hands, feet, eyes are left at shrines in gratitude for perceived healing. These objects accumulate over time, forming visible testimony to communal belief.
In the countryside, shrines stand at crossroads and near springs. Travelers pause briefly to leave small tokens. Rural communities maintain sacred groves where certain trees are protected from cutting. Agricultural rituals performed at these sites align planting and harvest with divine observance. Evening rituals mirror those of morning. Lamps are lit before household shrines. Incense burns slowly, releasing a steady fragrance. In temples, priests conclude official ceremonies and secure sacred spaces. The eternal flame tended by the Vestals continues to burn, symbolizing stability amid change. The passage of seasons structures life across the empire. Summer brings intensified agricultural labor and increased military campaigning, as dry weather facilitates movement. Winter slows travel and concentrates activity within urban centers. Religious festivals correspond to these cycles, marking transitions with ceremony. Natural events are interpreted through religious frameworks. Eclipses, earthquakes, or unusual storms prompt consultation of priests and augurs. Public sacrifices may be ordered to restore harmony. Official records sometimes note prodigies, unusual occurrences believed to require ritual response. As darkness settles once more over Rome, torches illuminate temple facades and public squares. Citizens return to their homes,
carrying with them the assurance that rituals have been observed and traditions maintained. In distant provinces, similar ceremonies conclude under different skies, yet aligned with the same calendar. Through these acts of devotion, Romans maintain a sense of order extending beyond human authority. Religion reinforces civic unity, legitimizes leadership, and connects daily labor to cosmic structure. The repetition of prayer, sacrifice, and festival anchors individuals within a continuum stretching backward to ancestors and forward to future generations. Night deepens, and the city grows quiet. The temples stand closed until morning. Household shrines glow faintly in darkened rooms. Across the empire, from frontier forts to coastal ports, the same rituals have been performed in varied forms. The system of belief remains woven into every layer of society, shaping perception and behavior. With another day completed, Rome rests within its network of tradition and observance. The cycles of time continue, measured by shadow and season, by decree and festival. As the stars move across the sky above the 7 hills, preparations quietly begin for the next dawn, when prayers will again be offered and the routines of ancient life will resume in steady continuity.
As morning light returns once again to the city of Rome, another dimension of daily life begins to unfold, one centered not on labor or governance, but on structured leisure. In a civilization as large and complex as Rome, entertainment serves not only as diversion, but also as reinforcement of social order and cultural identity. Public games, theatrical performances, athletic contests, and communal bathing create shared experiences across social classes, binding the population together within organized spectacle. Preparation for public events often begins long before sunrise. On the day of scheduled games at the Colosseum, vendors set up stalls along the approach roads. They arrange baskets of bread, dried fruit, and diluted wine for spectators who will spend hours seated inside the amphitheater. Citizens move steadily toward the massive structure, guided by numbered entrances corresponding to their tickets. Seating follows strict hierarchy. Senators occupy the lowest tiers closest to the arena floor. Equestrians sit just above them. Ordinary male citizens fill the middle sections. Women and the poorest residents sit in the highest rows. The amphitheater itself is an engineering achievement. Beneath the wooden arena floor lies a complex network of corridors and chambers known as the hypogeum. Here, animals imported from Africa and Asia, lions, leopards, bears, are housed temporarily. Mechanical lifts powered by pulleys and manpower raise cages upward through trapdoors into the arena. Gladiators prepare in holding areas, supervised by officials who enforce rules and schedules. When the games begin, a formal procession enters the arena. Participants parade before the crowd, accompanied by musicians playing horns and drums. The presiding magistrate or emperor acknowledges the assembly. Combat events follow established categories. Some gladiators carry large rectangular shields and short swords, trained in close combat. Others use nets and tridents, relying on agility. Matches are carefully paired to maintain balance and prolong engagement. Referees monitor proceedings to ensure adherence to regulations. The crowd observes with disciplined attention. Gestures and signals communicate approval or disapproval of particular fighters. Decisions regarding the fate of defeated combatants rest with the presiding official, influenced by crowd response and the circumstances of the match. These spectacles are costly to sponsor.
Wealthy individuals seeking public favor often finance games as acts of civic generosity. On other days, attention shifts to the Circus Maximus, the largest venue for public entertainment in Rome. The elongated track stretches between starting gates and turning posts. Teams identified with distinct colors, traditionally red, white, blue, and green, compete in chariot races. Drivers stand in lightweight chariots drawn by teams of horses, guiding them around the central barrier at high speed. The event consists of multiple laps, and skill in maneuvering tight turns determines success. Chariot racing attracts broad interest across social classes. Supporters align themselves with specific teams, forming loyal followings. Bets are placed informally among spectators. Victorious drivers can achieve fame and financial reward. Inscriptions record their achievements, and statues may be erected in their honor. Despite the speed and risk involved, races follow established procedures to maintain fairness. Theater performances offer another form of organized leisure. Stone theaters feature semicircular seating facing a decorated stage backdrop. Plays adapted from Greek originals are performed in Latin, including comedies and tragedies. Actors wear masks to indicate character roles. Dialogue is memorized carefully, and musical accompaniment enhances dramatic effect. Public attendance at theatrical events remains high, particularly during festivals, when performances are sponsored by magistrates. Beyond large spectacles, smaller forms of recreation fill daily life. In open courtyards and along quiet streets, individuals play board games carved into stone surfaces. One such game, Latrin Couli, involves strategic movement of pieces across a grid. Dice games are also common, though occasionally restricted by law. Taverns provide spaces for conversation and simple amusement, serving wine diluted with water. Bath complexes serve as social centers as well as places of hygiene. By late morning, citizens of varying ranks gather in the palestra, an open courtyard attached to the baths, to exercise. Activities include wrestling, ball games, and light weightlifting. After exercise, bathers move through a sequence of rooms heated by an underground system known as the hypocaust. Slaves maintain the furnaces, ensuring steady heat beneath raised floors. In the caldarium, steam rises from hot pools. Bathers converse calmly while attendants apply scented oils. A metal strigil scrapes away oil and dust from the skin. The tepidarium offers a warm transition space, followed by the frigidarium, where cool water refreshes the body. Bath complexes also include reading rooms and gardens, encouraging extended visits. Entry fees remain low, enabling wide participation. Leisure extends into private settings as well. In elite homes, dinner parties function as social events, combining food, discussion, and performance. Guests recline on couches arranged around low tables. Courses are served sequentially, beginning with small appetizers and progressing to more substantial dishes. Musicians or poets may perform during the meal. Conversations focus on philosophy, politics, or literature, reflecting the host's interests in education. In provincial towns, similar patterns of entertainment unfold on a smaller scale. Amphitheaters and theaters constructed in cities like Pompeii, Nimes, and Ephesus host events modeled on those in Rome. Public baths operate as community centers. These shared institutions reinforce cultural continuity across the empire. Children engage in their own forms of recreation. They play with wooden hoops, spinning tops, and carved figurines. In open spaces near homes, boys practice throwing balls or racing one another. Education occupies much of their time, but structured play remains part of childhood. Music accompanies many aspects of leisure. Instruments such as the lyre, flute, and small drums provide rhythm during performances and gatherings. Professional musicians perform at banquets and public ceremonies. Songs recount historical victories or mythological narratives, preserving cultural memory through repetition. Public holidays create opportunities for extended leisure. During certain festivals, work in markets and workshops pauses. Citizens gather in temples, theaters, or open squares to participate in communal activities. Decorations adorn streets, and processions move through designated routes. These events foster collective identity and reinforce loyalty to the state. Evening often brings quieter forms of relaxation. Families dine together in modest homes. Oil lamps illuminate interior rooms with steady light. Individuals read scrolls aloud or recount stories learned from tradition. In upper-class households, private libraries provide access to collections of poetry, history, and philosophy. Security remains present during large gatherings. Urban cohorts monitor crowds at games and races to prevent unrest. Fire brigades remain alert in densely populated districts. The organization of entertainment reflects broader Roman priorities: order, hierarchy, and continuity. As the final lamps dim in upper windows and streets grow quiet, Rome settles into rest once more. The arenas, theaters, and baths await the next scheduled events. Preparations will begin again with the coming dawn. Within these cycles of entertainment and leisure, the population finds routine engagement that complements the demands of work, governance, and belief. Another night passes beneath the steady presence of marble monuments and paved roads. The empire's structures endure, and with them the shared experiences that define life within ancient Rome.
As dawn rises once more over the city of Rome, far beyond its walls, other mornings are unfolding along rivers, deserts, forests, and mountains that mark the outer limits of imperial control. While the capital remains the administrative and symbolic heart of the empire, much of Roman life takes place at its frontiers and in its provinces. These distant regions are not isolated from Rome, but bound tightly to it through roads, law, military presence, and trade. To the north, along the Rhine and Danube rivers, fortified camps stand in disciplined alignment. Wooden watchtowers overlook broad stretches of water that serve as natural boundaries. In these frontier zones, soldiers wake before sunrise. The sound of a horn signals the beginning of the day. Legionaries assemble in formation within the rectangular layout of their fort, which mirrors the structured order of Roman cities. Streets intersect at right angles. Barracks line the perimeter. At the center stands the Principia, the headquarters building where standards and records are kept. A Roman legion is a professional force. Soldiers enlist for long terms of service, often 25 years. They receive regular pay, rations, and equipment. Training is constant. Even in times of relative peace, drills maintain discipline. Soldiers practice marching in full gear, constructing defensive ditches and assembling siege engines. Their armor includes helmets, shields, and body protection designed for coordinated movement. Standardization allows units from different regions to operate together seamlessly. Beyond the fortified camps lie settlements known as vici. These civilian communities develop near military installations, housing families of soldiers, traders, and craftsmen. Markets in these settlements sell food, clothing, and imported goods. Local populations interact daily with Roman personnel, gradually adopting elements of Roman dress, language, and architecture. Latin inscriptions begin to appear alongside native traditions. In Britain, the northern boundary is marked by a constructed barrier stretching across the landscape. This wall, built of stone and turf, regulates movement between Roman territory and unconquered lands. Gates control passage, and mile castles provide checkpoints at regular intervals. Soldiers patrol these sections methodically. Though the wall symbolizes division, trade continues through authorized crossings. To the east, the frontier along the Euphrates River presents a different environment. Here, fortified cities guard against incursions and monitor diplomatic relations with neighboring powers. Caravans approach from desert routes carrying silk, spices, and precious stones.
Roman officials inspect goods and collect duties. The presence of the army ensures that trade routes remain stable and secure. In North Africa, provinces such as Africa Proconsularis produce vast quantities of grain and olive oil. Roman roads cut across arid landscapes connecting inland farms to coastal ports. Aqueducts supply water to urban centers like Carthage, where amphitheaters and baths mirror those of Rome. Local elites participate in municipal councils, managing civic affairs while acknowledging imperial authority. The provinces are not uniform. Each retains distinctive customs, languages, and religious practices. In Gaul, Celtic traditions blend gradually with Roman law and infrastructure. Stone temples dedicated to both local deities and Roman gods stand side by side. Latin becomes the language of administration, but local dialects persist in rural areas. Roman citizenship expands over time. Initially reserved for inhabitants of Italy, it is gradually extended to provincial elites and eventually to free inhabitants across the empire. This expansion strengthens cohesion, binding diverse populations into a shared legal framework. Citizenship confers rights such as legal protection and the ability to engage fully in commerce. Provincial cities are organized according to familiar patterns. A central forum serves as the hub of civic life. Basilicas host legal proceedings. Public baths provide hygiene and social interaction. Amphitheaters offer entertainment modeled after that of Rome. The presence of these structures reinforces a recognizable urban identity throughout the empire. Taxation in the provinces supports both local administration and imperial finances. Governors supervise collection, often relying on established municipal councils to gather revenue. Taxes may include land assessments, trade duties, and special levies. While burdens vary by region, the predictable structure of Roman taxation allows for consistent planning of military and infrastructure expenses. Communication between Rome and the provinces remains steady through the imperial courier system. Messages travel by horse along designated routes. Relay stations provide fresh mounts, ensuring efficiency. Provincial governors send detailed reports on harvest yields, legal disputes, and potential unrest. These communications maintain a sense of connected governance despite geographic distance. Military life along the frontiers includes not only defense but also construction. Soldiers build bridges across rivers, carve roads through forests, and erect fortifications in strategic locations. Their labor shapes landscapes permanently. In some regions, veterans settle after completing service, receiving land grants that further integrate Roman culture into frontier territories. Trade flows steadily across provincial borders. In the markets of Antioch, merchants sell goods from India and Arabia. In the towns of Hispania, silver extracted from mines is minted into coinage. Along the Nile, barges carry grain northward to Mediterranean ports. Each province contributes according to its resources, reinforcing economic interdependence. Cultural exchange occurs gradually. Architectural styles incorporate local materials while following Roman design principles. Clothing blends traditional garments with Roman tunics and cloaks. Religious syncretism emerges, as local gods are equated with Roman counterparts. This blending creates layered identities rather than complete replacement. Security remains a constant concern. Frontier commanders monitor movements beyond the borders. Diplomacy with neighboring tribes and kingdoms alternates with military campaigns when negotiations fail. Fortified lines shift over decades as strategic needs change. Despite occasional conflict, extended periods of relative peace allow economic growth and urban development. In provincial households, daily routines mirror those of Rome. Families rise at dawn, prepare meals of grain and vegetables, attend markets, and observe religious rites. Children receive education where resources permit. Local craftsmen produce pottery, tools, and textiles for regional use. The presence of Roman law provides predictable resolution of disputes. As evening descends along the Rhine, torches illuminate fort gates. Soldiers stand watch in rotating shifts. In North African cities, markets close as the heat of the day fades. In eastern provinces, caravanserai fill with travelers resting beside their goods. Across these varied landscapes, Roman administration connects communities through shared standards. Back in the capital, news from these distant regions arrives in written reports. Advisors review updates from Britain, Gaul, Africa, and Syria. Decisions made in Rome affect policies thousands of miles away. The empire's cohesion depends on this steady exchange. Night falls across mountains and coastlines alike. From the mist along northern rivers to the dry air of desert frontiers, the same imperial authority shapes governance and daily life. Milestones, inscriptions, and fort walls mark the reach of Roman order. The frontiers are not merely edges, but active zones of interaction. Soldiers, merchants, farmers, and officials participate in maintaining stability. Through infrastructure, law, and disciplined organization, Rome extends its presence into diverse environments. As another day concludes across the provinces, the empire remains unified through routine and structure. Camps quiet as guards continue their patrols. Provincial forums empty under fading light. Messages prepared for dispatch await the next courier at dawn. In this expansive network stretching beyond the horizon, life unfolds in coordination with the capital, yet shaped by local terrain and tradition. The boundaries of Rome are guarded and administered through consistent effort. With each sunrise, the frontier awakens again, sustaining the vast system that defines the ancient Roman world.
As dawn breaks once more over the 7 hills, the city appears steady and unchanged. Marble temples still stand. Roads remain crowded. Markets open as they have for generations. Yet beneath this appearance of permanence, gradual shifts are underway. No empire remains fixed indefinitely. Over decades and centuries, pressures accumulate: economic, military, environmental, and political, reshaping the structure of Roman life in subtle but decisive ways. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the stability once associated with long reigns begins to fracture. Along distant frontiers, increased movement of tribes and rival powers requires heavier military presence. Emperors spend more time away from Rome, traveling with armies to oversee campaigns directly. The capital continues to function, but authority becomes more mobile, less centered solely on the city itself. The army grows in size to meet rising threats. Recruitment expands beyond traditional Italian sources. Soldiers from the provinces fill the ranks, bringing diverse languages and customs into the legions. Loyalty shifts gradually from abstract allegiance to Rome toward personal loyalty to commanding generals who provide pay and protection. This evolution influences political succession. Emperors are sometimes proclaimed by troops in frontier camps rather than chosen through careful adoption or senatorial approval. Economic strain becomes visible in currency. Silver coins that once held consistent weight and purity are gradually reduced in precious metal content. To the average merchant in the forum, the change is noticeable. Prices fluctuate. Confidence in coinage requires reassurance through imperial decree. Trade continues, but financial adjustments reflect pressure on state resources. In rural provinces, fortified estates become more common. Landowners invest in walls and private defenses as uncertainty grows in certain regions. Agricultural production continues, yet local self-sufficiency increases. Urban populations fluctuate as some residents move towards safer or more economically stable areas. Administrative reforms attempt to restore order. Emperors reorganize provinces into smaller units, increasing oversight and reducing the power of individual governors. New capitals emerge in strategic locations closer to frontiers. Cities such as Milan, Trier, and later Constantinople gain prominence. Rome remains symbolically important, but political gravity shifts gradually eastward, where economic strength and military resources concentrate. Public building projects persist, though their scale changes.
Repair and reinforcement often replace monumental expansion. Existing aqueducts and roads require maintenance. Officials allocate resources carefully, balancing defense needs with civic obligations. Inscriptions record restorations as well as new constructions. Religious life also undergoes transformation. Traditional Roman polytheism continues, but new movements spread across urban centers and trade routes. Christianity, initially a small and often misunderstood sect within the eastern provinces, grows steadily. Its communities organized around bishops and shared doctrine. Persecutions occur intermittently under certain emperors, who view refusal to participate in state rituals as a threat to unity. Yet the movement persists. By the early 4th century, imperial policy shifts. Under Constantine, Christianity gains legal recognition and later imperial favor. Churches are constructed in major cities. Public spaces, once reserved exclusively for traditional temples, now share prominence with new basilicas designed for Christian worship. This transformation alters the religious landscape of the empire without immediately erasing older practices. For a time, both systems coexist. Military strategy adapts to evolving challenges. Frontier lines become more flexible. Rather than relying solely on static walls, mobile field armies are developed to respond quickly to incursions. Fortifications remain important, but strategy emphasizes rapid deployment. Soldiers' equipment evolves as well, reflecting changing combat conditions. Urban life adjusts to new realities. In some cities, amphitheaters fall into less frequent use as resources are redirected. Bath complexes remain active, but may operate on reduced schedules in certain regions. Markets continue to function, though trade routes occasionally shift due to security concerns. In the countryside, patterns of labor gradually change. Tenant farming arrangements become more formalized. Coloni, agricultural workers tied to land through legal obligation, represent an adaptation to economic pressures. These arrangements ensure continuity of food production while stabilizing rural populations. Education and literature continue, though intellectual centers shift. Christian scholars establish schools and scriptoria, where manuscripts are copied and preserved. Classical texts remain valued, studied alongside emerging theological works. Libraries attached to churches begin to supplement those associated with traditional institutions. The administrative division of the empire into eastern and western regions formalizes differences that had been developing gradually. Each half maintains its own imperial court, military command, and fiscal system. The eastern provinces, with strong urban networks and trade connections to Asia, remain comparatively stable. The western regions face more frequent disruptions from migrating groups crossing frontier boundaries. Despite challenges, daily life for many residents retains familiar structure. Farmers still rise at dawn to tend fields. Artisans open workshops. Officials record taxes and legal cases. Religious observances continue in varied forms. The empire does not collapse overnight, but transforms across generations. In Rome itself, monuments remain standing, though some are repurposed. Temples may be converted into churches. Public spaces continue to host gatherings, though political influence increasingly resides elsewhere. Senators adapt to shifting authority, maintaining status within a redefined framework. Along the Rhine and Danube, pressure from migrating confederations increases during the 4th and 5th centuries. Agreements allow certain groups to settle within imperial territory as federated allies. These arrangements aim to integrate newcomers into the imperial system while maintaining defense capacity. Success varies depending on leadership and resources. In 410 CE, the city of Rome experiences a direct breach when a Visigothic force enters and sacks portions of the city. Though the physical damage is limited compared to earlier destructive conquests in history, the symbolic impact is significant. For centuries, Rome had stood as an untouchable center. The event signals a shift in perception about imperial invulnerability. The Western administrative system continues for several decades, but authority fragments gradually. Local leaders assume greater control. In 476 CE, the last Western emperor is deposed, marking a conventional date for the end of the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Empire, centered in Constantinople, endures for nearly another 1,000 years, preserving Roman law and administrative structures in altered form. Across former Western provinces, Roman roads, aqueducts, and legal traditions remain embedded in daily life. Latin evolves into regional languages. Christian institutions preserve elements of Roman organization. Agricultural estates continue operation under new political arrangements. As night falls once more over the city of Rome, the transformation of centuries becomes part of lived reality. The Forum no longer holds the same political authority it once did, yet its stones remain. The Colosseum stands as a reminder of earlier spectacles. Churches rise where temples once dominated. The story of Rome is not one of sudden disappearance, but of gradual adaptation. Systems built over centuries influence societies long after centralized rule diminishes. Law codes, architectural techniques, and administrative practices endure beyond imperial boundaries. With each passing dawn, residents of former Roman territories continue routines shaped by inherited structures. Markets open, fields are plowed, prayers are offered in new forms. The memory of empire becomes woven into regional identities. The sun sets once again over the 7 hills, casting long shadows across ancient stone. Though political forms have shifted, the imprint of Roman life remains visible in roads, languages, and institutions. The transformation of the empire reflects the passage of time itself, steady, incremental, and enduring. And as another quiet night settles over the remnants of imperial grandeur, the rhythms of daily life continue, carrying forward traditions forged in the centuries when Rome stood at the center of a vast and ordered world.
As dawn rises once again over the city, the light touches structures that have endured beyond the height of imperial power. Though political authority in the West has shifted, the physical and institutional legacy of Rome remains embedded in landscapes stretching from Britain to North Africa. Roads still cut across valleys. Aqueduct arches still span lowlands. Latin inscriptions remain carved into stone. The routines of daily life continue, shaped by habits established over centuries of Roman governance. In the former Western provinces, urban centers adapt to new political leadership. Local rulers occupy administrative buildings once used by imperial officials. Roman law codes, compiled and refined over generations, continue to guide legal decisions. The structure of courts, the recording of contracts, and the organization of municipal councils persist in modified forms. Even as imperial titles fade, the administrative habits endure. In Italy, the city of Rome retains symbolic importance. Religious authority grows in prominence as bishops assume expanded civic roles. Churches constructed within or near former civic buildings become focal points of community life. Architectural techniques pioneered under Roman engineers are applied to new forms of construction. Arches, vaults, and domes continue to define monumental buildings. Across Gaul and Hispania, Latin evolves gradually into regional dialects that will become new languages over centuries. Words used in markets, households, and legal proceedings carry Roman origins. Measurements, calendars, and written forms reflect continuity. Even where political control fragments, cultural patterns remain interconnected. In the Eastern Mediterranean, the Roman state centered in Constantinople preserves administrative continuity more directly. Officials continue to issue edicts in the name of the emperor. Roman law is codified comprehensively under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century.
preserving centuries of legal reasoning in organized form. This body of law will influence European legal systems long after the empire's territorial reach contracts. Trade routes established under Roman administration continue to operate. Mediterranean shipping lanes remain active, though adjusted to new political realities. Ports built with Roman engineering serve merchants for generations. Bridges and roads, constructed with durable materials and careful planning, allow continued movement of goods and people. Military organization leaves its imprint as well. Fortified sites along former frontiers become foundations for later settlements. The layout of Roman camps influences the structure of medieval towns. Defensive walls constructed during imperial rule are repaired and reused by subsequent rulers. Education systems transform but preserve elements of classical curriculum. Classical texts copied in monasteries and scholarly centers ensure the survival of works by historians, poets, and philosophers. Manuscript copying becomes a disciplined craft. Libraries, though smaller in scale than earlier imperial collections, maintain continuity of written knowledge. Religious transformation accelerates the blending of Roman institutional structure with Christian organization. Dioceses mirror administrative boundaries once used by provincial governors. Councils convene in cities that had long served as centers of Roman governance. The concept of a unified authority overseeing widespread communities echoes earlier imperial models. In rural regions, agricultural techniques developed under Roman management persist. Crop rotation, irrigation channels, and estate organization remain practical tools. Villas may fall into disrepair in some areas, yet the patterns of land division and cultivation endure. Monuments become markers of memory. The Colosseum, no longer hosting games, stands as a recognizable landmark. Aqueducts, though sometimes damaged, continue to deliver water in certain regions. Temples converted into churches carry layered histories, visible in reused columns and foundations. Travelers in later centuries move along Roman roads without always knowing their origin. Milestones carved with Latin inscriptions remain embedded in pathways. Bridges of stone carry caravans and pilgrims across rivers once crossed by legionaries. The durability of Roman engineering ensures long-term utility. Legal traditions outlast imperial boundaries. Concepts such as written contracts, property rights, and codified law influence emerging European kingdoms. Scholars study preserved legal texts to guide governance. Roman law becomes a reference point for later legal reforms. Urban planning concepts also survive. The idea of a central square surrounded by civic buildings reappears in medieval towns. The alignment of streets in grid patterns persists where Roman foundations remain intact. Markets continue to gather in spaces originally designated as forums. Language serves as one of Rome's most enduring legacies. Latin remains the language of scholarship, law, and liturgy in much of Europe for centuries. Even as spoken forms evolve into distinct languages, written Latin provides continuity across regions. In North Africa and the eastern provinces, Roman architectural forms blend with emerging cultural influences. Amphitheaters and bathhouses may decline in use, but their structural designs inform later constructions. Mosaic art continues, adapting themes to new religious narratives. As centuries pass, individuals living among Roman ruins interpret them through changing perspectives. Some see them as reminders of past grandeur. Others reuse materials for new buildings. Stone blocks from ancient temples become part of city walls or houses. The physical fabric of Rome is integrated into subsequent eras. In academic circles centuries later, renewed study of Roman texts and architecture inspires intellectual movements. Scholars analyze preserved manuscripts, rediscovering legal principles, philosophical arguments, and engineering techniques. The memory of Rome becomes a foundation for later educational revival. Throughout these transformations, the daily rhythms of ordinary life persist.
Farmers cultivate fields once managed under imperial estates. Merchants sell goods in marketplaces established centuries earlier. Religious leaders conduct services within buildings whose walls once echoed with different rituals. The concept of empire itself remains influenced by Roman precedent. Later rulers adopt titles, symbols, and administrative frameworks modeled after Rome. The image of a centralized authority governing diverse regions becomes a reference for political organization. As the sun sets once more over the city that began this journey, the stones of ancient Rome remain illuminated briefly before fading into evening shadow. Though the empire that constructed them has transformed, its imprint continues across continents. The roads extend outward still. The arches stand in silhouette. Latin words echo in modern speech. Legal codes trace their lineage to Roman compilations. Cities follow patterns established in antiquity. Night settles quietly over ruins and living neighborhoods alike. The story of Rome does not conclude with the fall of a political office or the closure of an imperial palace. It continues in structures reused, in laws adapted, in languages spoken, and traditions preserved. With another dawn waiting beyond the horizon, the legacy of ancient Rome remains woven into the foundations of societies that followed. The rhythms of daily life, shaped long ago by Roman order and infrastructure, continue in evolved form. Through continuity and adaptation, the world Rome left behind carries forward the patterns of a civilization that once defined the known world.